World War II was full of bizarre missions, ideas, and gambles that prove that fact is truly stranger than fiction. Counterfeiting money is typically associated with organized crime, that Leonardo DiCaprio movie, or North Korea. But in World War II, Nazi Germany saw forging currency as a potential boon to its war effort, and it even planned a mission that would put it into practice, Operation Bernhard. The plan was reportedly to flood the British economy with fake currency and enrich the Nazi war effort by using the forgeries to buy gold and to pay off Nazi spies in Britain. And of course, Nazis being Nazis, they used Jewish concentration camp prisoners to carry out the forging. Though many fake bills from Operation Bernhard did indeed make it into the British monetary system, the scheme was detected by the Bank of England early on, and the British government just removed the high-value bills from circulation. With a game afoot, the Nazis just dumped most of the counterfeits into a lake in Austria, along with abandoned printing plates.
Throw it away!
2 words: weaponized pigeons.
They're gonna blow up.
Okay, well, not like that. B.F. Skinner wasn't just famous for putting rats in boxes. He was a bit of an inventor too, and obviously wasn't stuck on one species either. So he figured he'd put the two together and try to win the war. You see, there was a problem of accuracy in newly developed long-range missiles, so Skinner came up with what became known as Project Pigeon, a bonkers scheme to train pigeons to pilot missiles toward enemy targets. Yes, you heard that right.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard.
The researcher had experimented with the birds in his work before, because man does not live by rat alone. So he was convinced that a team of 3 kamikazes could together be trained to peck in the direction of a target, guiding the missile on the correct path as they did so.
The birds! They just birded a man to death!
Research into Skinner's plan received a generous amount of funding, leading to a successful Project Pigeon missile test. The military command, however, eventually decided it was a bird-brained idea. And it was never put into action in the field. If you think that idea was batty, well, we've got more puns for you. The US Navy was also working to exploit the flying abilities of wild bats, specifically the Mexican free-tailed bat found all over Texas and New Mexico. The mission involved developing a specially designed bat bomb that could be dropped over Japan to attack military targets on the ground. The play for Project X-Ray was to drop bat bombs with a bunch of bombed-up bats in a canister, have the canister deploy, and then the bats would fly into the wooden Japanese structures nearby, and chaos and explosions ensue. There were issues with trying to keep the bats awake at the time of deployment, and there was one time when the bats accidentally burned down an airbase in New Mexico. But that did mean it worked, so the bat bombs were ready for deployment in 1944. But at the last minute, resources were reassigned to the Manhattan Project. Turns out that an atomic bomb was trusted a bit more than fire bats.
Some days you just can't get rid of a bomb.
Controlling the oceans was key to World War II, and people were willing to try anything for naval superiority. The so-called Project Habakkuk sought to make future British battleships more resistant to torpedoes and aerial bombardment than ever before, by making them out of ice. The project was the brainchild of scientist Geoffrey Pike, who planned to create an ice-based aircraft carrier some 2,000 feet long, dwarfing other carriers of the era. If you're thinking that this is the craziest idea ever, not so fast. Tests mixed water with sawdust and wood chips and resulted in ice that was as strong as concrete and resistant to attack. So basically an iceberg is the anti-Titanic, truly unsinkable. That might be too soon. Anyway, Pike even managed to get Winston Churchill on board with the idea. Drawbacks in the design, however, including an over-reliance on cork and the vulnerability of the vessel's enormous rudder, eventually sank plans. For one of the war's most outlandish projects. The Atlantic Wall represented a major problem for the Allies, and all the iceberg boats in the world couldn't defeat it. That led to some additional creative ideas. One of these was the Panjandrum, a fanciful invention that could have played a role in the D-Day landings. As you can see, the massive contraption looks kind of like a cannon without the barrel, and it would be propelled by rockets and loaded with explosives. The plan was to launch them toward the Atlantic Wall in the hope of blowing through the concrete fortifications. Turns out there's no steering wheel on those, so in terms of maintaining direction, they were unreliable. Plus, the rockets were often faulty. The planned deployment was shelved indefinitely. But was the bizarre idea nothing but a hoax? There's a theory floated by a few historians that the development of the Panjandrum may have been part of a grand deception. In this theory, the bizarre contraption was potentially leaked to the Nazis to divert their forces from other sections of the Atlantic Wall. As if bat bombs, weaponized pigeons, and ice boats weren't enough, spinning wheel of rocket chaos was enough to get their attention.